Hey everyone, how's it going? Hello? Let's see if we've got folks signing on. Hey everyone. Hello. Hi everybody. Thanks for signing on. It has been quite a 24 hours, especially in relation to coronavirus. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to answer any of your questions that we have right now. A lot of developments have happened in the last day, and there's a lot of confusion, particularly after the president's address last night, but also we have some paths on the way forward. So I wanted to make sure that we get as much information to you as possible as to what has happened and what is on course to be happening right now in the next 24 hours. So I want to make sure that I answer all of your questions with respect to coronavirus and coronavirus response. So please feel free to ask any questions, but I'll give you a quick update. Last night, the president issued an address to the country on federal coronavirus response. He included some items that he wanted to see happen, and the administration overall has been pushing for certain things to happen, like a payroll tax. That is on the side of the White House, but in the side of the House of Representatives, where I am and where we are right now, yesterday and late last night, we unveiled an emergency coronavirus package, which addresses direct issues to workers like paid sick leave and other emergency measures. Now, in terms of how I see this situation, all of these proposals, with the exception of tax cuts, I would say are first steps, but we really need to be considering much larger actions. And we need to get clarity to people. Additionally, logistically, some of the issues that we're seeing right now is just functionally on tests, not just the manufacturing of tests and making sure that people have enough tests, but also the processing of those tests. Because if I submit a sample to be tested, if it's sitting on a shelf for too long, that sample will spoil if it does not get processed in time. So there are two issues that we have here logistically on the actual measurement of coronavirus. There's the testing and there is the processing. All of these things we are trying to address in relief packages. Now, where are we right now? Why am I talking to you? Why am I not running around right now? Because we are at somewhat of a standstill. Last night, Nancy Pelosi introduced a sweeping coronavirus package, which included provisions like paid sick leave in addition to other provisions. And what we're seeing is that today, this morning, Republicans are blocking it. Republicans blocked a paid sick leave bill yesterday in the Senate. And they are currently blocking a bill, the relief bill today. Now, the reason this is such an urgent issue is because Congress is set to leave Washington, D.C. today. We were set to basically be released today, and we were all going to be going back to our districts to help coordinate emergency response with city and state officials and other local agencies. With Republicans blocking current action right now on this, we don't know what is going to happen. There's kind of a scramble right now, and what we're kind of hearing is that the holdup, and again, this is what we're hearing from negotiators, is that the holdup is that Republicans are trying to put abortion provisions into this bill, which is completely unfounded, particularly Hyde. This is some of what we're starting to hear, and it's just, we need to address the virus, and we need to keep these kind of highly controversial and political provisions out of this situation. So right now, it doesn't seem like Republicans have a valid reason in the House to be blocking this bill. They have not identified specific grounds. It seems like their issues are process related, aka this is coming from Nancy Pelosi, and by virtue of that, we don't like it. And right now is the moment for leadership. We need to be able to put all of this stuff aside, and we need to be able to work in service of everyday people. And frankly, this package is not even as robust as even I think it should be. This is already a perfectly reasonable bill. You know, if I could wave my wand, if I could wave a magic wand and say, this is what we need to do right now in response to this crisis, here are some of the things that I think we should be doing. We should be considering opening Medicare and Medicaid to every single person in the United States. If you are uninsured, if you are underinsured, which means if you have terrible insurance that it makes it prohibitively expensive for you to go to a doctor, I think right now what we need to be doing is expanding and considering opening Medicare and Medicaid to any single person in the United States right now that needs it. That's one. Two, we need to address a lot of the financial instability of that these disruptions to our economy are having in the lives of everyday people. So the second thing that we need to really be considering is halting debt payments and considering stays on evictions. Now that's more of a local and state level. I want to congratulate Miami-Dade County is now no longer participating in evictions in this moment, but we need to have a hold on all evictions. But also, in addition to that, in terms of federal policy, we need to get Betsy DeVos to stop collecting student loan payments right now. We need to pause all collection on student loan payments in addition to mortgage relief as well. There are so many people whose jobs, whether you're a tipped worker, a shift worker, an hourly worker, freelancer, etc., where your income is being widely disruptive and rather widely disrupted. And if that is the case, this is happening systemically, and we need to make sure that we're pausing collection on student loans and other major debt payments before people get evicted, before they can't afford food, before all of those sorts of terrible scenarios can happen. So those are some of the things that we need to take a look at. In addition, our most vulnerable populations that are in detention and incarceration need to be addressed right now. Whether it's Rikers or MDC in New York City, a lot of these folks don't even have access to hand sanitizer or soap themselves, yet they are being used as prison labor to create hand sanitizer for the state of New York. This is completely unacceptable. People's lives are in danger, and I would urge that if you are a DA right now, to consider ending pretrial detention and consider ending cash bail in this present moment, particularly for communities that are very deeply impacted. So there's a lot of that's going on. Clemency for elderly people, as well as reducing and ending immigration detention for as many people as possible. These are people, and these are facilities that are keeping people crammed up like sardines, often folks who have not been convicted of a crime, or who have not been found guilty of a crime, and it could potentially exacerbate into a much larger scale public health situation. So all of these are very critical and important issues. I want to dive into some questions. We just had an address from former Vice President Biden. We will have an upcoming address from Senator Sanders in about 10 minutes. So I don't want to kind of step on either of these addresses, but I want to get through as many questions as possible for you all. So I'm just going to pop in. Again, I'm answering questions on coronavirus and giving you a quick update in the middle of the legislative day. We do not know what is happening right now. So Congress was originally set to head out. Today was a fly-out day. We were all going to be heading back to our districts to help coordinate emergency response. We don't know if that's still going to happen. But what I can tell you to our constituents in New York 14 and to our residents in the Bronx and Queens, my teletown hall on Saturday is still on. No matter what the scenario is, I fully intend intend on continuing our town hall. As many of you may know, it was transferred to a tele-town hall some time ago to prevent spread. So, we will also be having city public health officials as well as local schools and Census Bureau officials that will be on that town hall as well to answer any additional questions for you all. So I'm going to hop into a couple of quick questions here. Let's see. Folks say, will New York residents be protected in the event that they can't pay rent? I think this is an excellent question. This is something that we're going to have to organize for to a large degree. Right now, we don't have an answer from the city in the immediate sense, but Miami-Dade County just announced that they are placing a moratorium on city help with evictions. So that is an enormous step. I think it's something that if you live in a city or any sort of community with a housing crisis, we shouldn't act like the housing crisis just belongs to cities. It belongs to suburban and rural areas as well. But one thing that I will say is that I think it's incredibly important that this needs to be focused city and state organizing. There is a petition going around online, if you search for it, asking for a moratorium on evictions in New York City. Miami-Dade County has announced this. So we are seeing movement on moratoriums in evictions in Miami-Dade. I believe that there could be that momentum moving forward to other cities, but you all need to push for it and organize for it on a city and state level. I have already called for moratorium evictions. The key is getting more and more people on board with that recommendation. Folks are saying landlords also need their money. I understand that cash flow situation, which is why I think there should also be that should also be paired with federal mortgage relief. It will still create a scenario if people can't pay their rent, but then landlords currently cannot pay their mortgages. This could create a kind of a trickling up effect. And so we have to make sure that there's relief on all ends. That's ideological considerations aside. I think in terms of emergency provision and emergency measure, these are all things that we should be considering at once: mortgage relief and moratorium on evictions. I'm pulling up some more questions for you all here. Let's see. So there's one question here that says, do you think that the panic matches the level of impact? First of all, panic is not a productive emotion, or rather panic is not a productive state for us to be in, no matter how bad the situation is. Panic could be paralyzing. It is not productive. So the one thing that we need to do is be focused. And so what's incredibly important is that we draw down our sense of panic. And one of the most important ways of addressing a sense of panic is by being proactive, making sure you are prepared, and taking the actions that are necessary. So make sure that you are practicing social distancing. People are saying, oh, this isn't going to hurt me, or coronavirus isn't going to kill me. There's misinformation saying, oh, this is not much worse than the flu. First of all, we were hearing testimony from CDC officials yesterday. This is about 10 times worse than the flu. But what's most important is that it really does not matter if you are asymptomatic. It doesn't matter if you will experience it as just a small cold. What is incredibly important for us to all realize is that we are vectors. So if you are particularly healthy and if you are blessed with health right now, you could potentially carry coronavirus and be asymptomatic, which means all the people in your neighborhood that are immunocompromised, that are elderly, that suffer from certain disabilities, which many of you may not even see or recognize. You may have people that you know that are immunocompromised, and you may have no idea that they carry a condition that makes them immunocompromised. So the really key important part is making sure that we are not vectors for disease. So there's no reason to panic, but there is reason to act. And that means that what we should be doing is avoiding large gatherings. We should not be going to places where many people are gathering at once. We should be encouraging telecommuting as much as possible. We should be supporting paid sick leave, and we should be making sure that we are practicing social distancing as much as possible, because it's not about coronavirus is more than just about individual risk. It's about systemic risk. And that's a second point that I want to make sure that you all understand, is that the systemic risk is, even if you do get it, the important part is to slow down transmission of the disease. Because if an enormous amount of people contract, of those, even those vulnerable people or just people in general, contract coronavirus at the same time, hospitals will be overwhelmed, our systems will be overwhelmed, and this can create triggers in supply chains and so on. You know, a lot of people experience this if you're going to Costco or if you're going to a store and all of the hand sanitizer is wiped out. That's because everyone is rushing to buy it at the same time. Now think of that impact times 10 in a hospital. That's the problem that we're dealing with right now. So it's less an issue on if you get sick eventually, and it's less an issue on if you contract coronavirus at some time. The problem is if every single person, or if the problem is if a huge percentage of immunocompromised people get this, contract coronavirus within the next several weeks, or, within the next even month to 2 months. That creates an enormous strain on our hospitals, and that is really what this situation is all about. It's about making sure that our systems, our hospitals, and our public health institutions, our insurance, all of it remains intact. And the way we do that is by practicing social isolation and not risking becoming a vector of disease. So you could be totally fine, you could spread it to someone else. And that exactly is the core of the problem. So let me take a couple more questions if I can. Let's see. Some folks are saying, what's going to happen to those who will be unemployed due to closing? So one of the things that's very important in our House Democratic package is extended unemployment insurance benefits for any and all people that are impacted by layoffs during this crisis. And between extended unemployment insurance and paid sick leave, those are two of some of the most important economic provisions that are in this House package. Again, Republicans are blocking this over, from what we are hearing in internal negotiations, Republicans may be blocking this over reasons of choice, and that is something that is just simply unconscionable. I understand if we can have complete disagreements on this issue, put it aside. Let's address this issue first. We'll deal with that argument later. But to put that argument here as part of a coronavirus package is unconscionable. So that's something that we're really trying to work on in getting past. But even then, extended unemployment benefits and extended unemployment insurance, this is something that's in our federal package. However, I personally do not think that that is enough. As many people know, you could be in the hospitality industry, you could be a waitress like I was, you could be a freelancer, you could be a shift worker, and you could potentially still be classified as employed, but you're essentially not making tips and you are not getting shifts, even though you haven't technically been fired or laid off. And we need relief for some of those folks. I have floated testing no strings or unconditional universal basic income, or removing work requirements from any and all assistance programs, whether it's SNAP, Medicaid, or anything else. We need to be removing work requirements right now because a lot of people need help, and they may not be formally classified as unemployed, but that is essentially what their experience is right now, or they just aren't making income even if they are showing up for work. A lot of people know that if you work in hospitality, the minimum wage for a tipped worker can be as low as $2, $3, $4 an hour. In some states, it is insanely low. And I can tell you, I wish I could pull it up right now. When I worked in restaurants, I would get a check at the end of the week and it would be for $0.00, or sometimes $0.03, because after taxes are taken out, you don't quite receive you don't really quite receive pay. So we need to make sure that we're helping people, particularly tipped workers, especially as the MBA is shutting down, especially as conferences like South by Southwest are shutting down. These are going to impact some of the largest sectors of our workers in our economy, and the parts of our economy that are growing, which are gig workers and shift workers. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. And let's see. Just taking a look at, I'm going to try to answer one more question, and I know the senator is hopping on now soon, so I'll hop off as to kind of not step on Bernie's address. Here, people say family leave is also needed to help with caretaking for kids kept home from school. Absolutely, 100%. One of the big provisions that we're talking about with paid leave is that it's not paid leave only if you are sick. It's also paid family leave and paid leave for having to take care of others during this crisis. So one thing that I am saying is that for now, New York City public schools are open. Unfortunately, we live in a country where homelessness is at strong highs, and hunger is an existing issue, and there are just way too many kids that would be without a home and way too many kids that would be without a meal if we close New York City public schools. So right now the city is making every single effort to keep the schools open, but also know that there are contingency plans that are developing and are in place in case that we have to move to a different step. But right now, every effort is being made to keep schools open in the city of New York. So with that, I'll pop off, and thank you all so much. See ya.